Okay, this is 3.1, and I'm going to run through one of each type of problem here just to kind of give you an idea how to do the different types. That way if you're absent, you have something to do, and if you were there and you need more help, you've got some place to go also. I'm going to choose to do number 3 to start off with. We're told to solve the equation if the domain of x, that means the x's I'm going to plug in, are -1, 0, and 2. Okay? Well, what the equation on number 3 is -x minus 2y is equal to 0. Now, when they're giving me domain, this is the x's that I have in my that I'm going to plug in this certain situation. Normally, we would say, in this case, the domain would be all real numbers because we could plug in anything we wanted to for x and solve for the y that goes with it. But here they're just giving us 3 particular x's to plug in, so we're only going to give the 3 y's that go with these x's. And remember, when I find these y's, that's called the range. And so I'm going to list them as I find them, okay? So I'm going to kind of color code these. I'm going to first plug in x is -1, okay? So it's -x minus 2y is 0. Now, I could do this way, but let's do something for a minute. I kind of think about this, and I got 3 different x's to plug in. Wouldn't it be easier for me if I plug in all these 3 x's, each time I'm going to have to solve for y? What if I just did it once? What if I solve for y first and then plug in the numbers? It'll make it easier to do my calculations, okay? So we're going to solve for y first. And then I'll go back and plug it in. So I really don't want to actually go plug anything in just quite yet. I want to go ahead and solve this for y. So to get y by itself, let me add an x to each side. I didn't have to put that parentheses there. I kind of for a minute forgot that maybe this is a good idea. So the opposite of a minus x is a plus x. If I add an x to each side, that would cause it to go away on the left-hand side. And I would have -2y equal x. 0 plus x is x. And now if I want to get y by itself, I could divide both sides by -2. And these -2's would cancel out, and they make 1y, which is just y. And I could write it as x divided by -2, or I could write it as -1/2 times x. Either way is correct. And actually, I don't even have to have the parentheses around the x. But it's the same thing, and you need to know that, because a lot of times when we're solving for y, when we're graphing lines, we would want to look at that slope there. The number in front of the x would end up being our slope, and it would be -1/2 in this case. Well, now that I've done this, it's going to make everything else easier. I'm going to solve for y one time, and then I'm going to go plug each one of these in. So now let me start to do that. That's what I had. That's why I wrote that in red in the first place. I'm going to change my mind and just kind of do this one in green now, since I kind of messed up over there as far as the train of thought I went on. So I have y equal -1/2 times x. And that green x that I underlined is -1. Well, -1/2 times -1 is a positive 1/2. So there's a member of our domain. That's the y that goes with x is -1. Now I'll do the next one in blue just so you can track with the colors. Y is equal to -1/2 times x, and this x is 0. Well, anything times 0 is 0. So I know I got a 0 in there, and that's a solution. 0, 0 is a solution. And I'm just going to list it like this because they gave me my x's in a list. So I'm going to give my y's in a list. Then I'll choose purple here. I'm going to plug in this 2 here. Y is equal to -1/2 times x, but the x I'm plugging in is 2, and -1/2 times 2 is -1. Now, if you go check this in the book, they probably don't have it in this order, because what they usually do when they list domain and range is they usually list the members of the set from least to greatest. It's kind of not such a great thing sometimes, because sometimes we want to know, well, what y went with what x. And we really can't tell that from the list, but if we were to probably do what the book's going to do and give the answer, they're probably going to list this. -1 would be the smallest number, and then 0 would be the next biggest, and then the largest number would be 1/2. So this is probably what you're going to see in your solutions in the book, because they tend to do that. They actually might give you a list and have another way they could have listed it. I'm not looking at the book right now, so I can't really see this. They could have done this. They could have said, well, -1, when x is -1, y was 0. When x was 0, when x was -1, y was not 0. It was 1/2. When x is 0, y is 0. There we go. And when x was 2, y was -1. So that's another thing they can do if they want to make sure you know which x and y go together, they'll list it this way. And so I just turned the video off and turned it back on. They're actually listing it this way, so that's what I'll do. Go down to number 14, because number 14, I assigned 13 through 15 in the assignments, and I know you can look up the answers for the other two, but this is even, so I'm going to choose to do this one. We get the equation 4x plus 3y is 8, and they say complete each ordered pair to form a solution of the equation. Well, I want you to notice something that they're doing here on purpose. They give me three different things. One is 0, x is 0, and they want me to find the y that goes with it. Do you realize that this is our y-intercept? Our y-intercept is where x is equal to 0. You need to know that. That's very important. For an intercept, whatever intercept we're trying to find, the opposite variable is equal to 0. Well, what's the next point they want you to find? Oh, they give you y is 0, so that is the x-intercept. So in these, they're very particular here. If you look at these ones they're asking you to find in 13 through 16 at least, they're actually having you find the x-intercept and y-intercept, and that's so they can remind you about that without having to do a whole different section reviewing that, because we don't have that kind of time to review, but they work it into things like this. So you just remember that's what's going on there. Now they also give us the point x is 5, what's the y that goes with it. That's not anything special, it's just another point on the graph, okay? But those first two were very intentional. Okay, so what we're going to do is this. You know, in one of the earlier problems, I guess the earlier problem that we did here, we actually solved for y to make it easier to plug stuff in. But I want to also remind you about something else you learned. When you have equations in standard form and you're finding the x and the y-intercept, way back in Algebra 1, one of the things you did was you saw that standard form is great for finding intercepts. Because if I want to plug in x is 0, for like the first one, I'll do the first one in black. So I'm plugging in this x is 0. And I'm trying to find the y that goes with it. When you plug in 0 in standard form, hey, it's sweet, because 4 times 0 is just 0. And 0 plus 3y is 3y. Oh, that simplified really easily. When you have standard form, two of the easiest points to graph are your x-intercept and y-intercept if you don't want to have to solve for y. And, you know, they're just so easy to plug in. All right, so if I want that y value, I've got to divide both sides by 3. So I get y is 8/3. So I'll put that up here. That's what they're wanting me to put it in the point that way. But I want you to notice that tells me my y-intercept is 8/3, which is 2 2/3. If I were graphing, that might be kind of nice to know. All right, I'll do the next one in blue. This one, if you think about it, here's the x, here's the y. They're in alphabetical order. Y is 0. So this time I'm going to plug in y, and it's 0. Well, here's why standard form is so nice for this. 3 times 0 is just 0, right? So 4x plus 0 is just 4x. And if 4x is equal to 8, and I divide both sides by 4 to solve for x, I'm going to get x is 2. That tells me my x-intercept is 2. Those 2 points should probably always, it's always a good idea to have them on your graphs. Once we get on later in the year with a lot of stuff that we do, we're required to have them. That should just be something you automatically know you need to put on a graph. Okay, I'll do the next one in a green color. We got 4x plus 3y is 8, and the reason I put the parentheses on the x is they gave me an x, so I'm going to plug in 5 as the x, and I'm trying to find the y that goes with it. I could have solved for y first to do this, but I just wouldn't here since this is the only point we really need to plug in that wasn't a 0. So 4 times 5 is 20, and we have 20 plus 3y is 8. If I want to get y by itself, I can always subtract 20 from both sides to get rid of it, right? Always add and subtract first, and we're doing the opposite thing. So we get 3y is negative 12. And if I want to get y by itself, then I divide both sides by 3. And I get y equal negative 4. So I've got the point 5, negative 4. I'm going to try to get one more in, and that's number 21. I don't think I'll be able to get more than that on this video. We have 2x plus y equal k. Is that what I was wanting to do? Yeah. 2x plus y is k. And they tell me, they want me to find the value of k so that this equation is true when you plug in the point 2, 1. So you might go, wait a minute, there's an X, there's a Y, and the K. That's too many letters in an equation. Well, the thing about it is too many to solve for if they didn't give you any more information, but they did give you some information. They gave you a point up here, and the point was 2, 1. Well, this is an X value and this is a Y value, and you just have to find K, right? So here's what you do. Anytime you've got an equation and you're given extra information, you can always see what's the information they gave you, and you can go plug that information into the equation to help kind of solve for something else. Okay, so in this case, since I have an X and a Y, I can plug them in and I can find the K. And here's how. 2X plus Y is equal to K. Okay, my X is 2, so that's going to go here. I'll just kind of color code a little bit. And the Y is 1, so that's going to go here. So we have 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is K. What is K? Oh, it's 5. All I had to do was take the equation they gave me and plug in that point. And this is something that you do all the way through calculus. This never goes away. When you are given a point with an equation, chances are you're going to be plugging that point in somewhere. So you know that you've got an X value and a Y value and a point, and so it's going to end up getting plugged in.